So today we have verses 43, 44, 45, and 46 of chapter 18 lined up. I'll start with verse number 43. शौर्यं तेजो धृतिर्दाक्षयम् युद्धे चाप्यय पलायनम् दानम् ईश्वरभावश्च क्षात्रं कर्म स्वभावजम्. So this verse translates to prowess, splendor, steadfastness, dexterity, and not fleeing from the battle. Charity and lordliness are characteristics of Kshatriya born of their nature. Let's take this up word by word. Shauryam, prowess. Tej is splendor, radiance. Dhriti, we have been discussing steadfastness, firmness, consistency of purpose. Dakshyam, dexterity, alertness. Yuddhe, in battle. Cha and api also. Apalayanam. So palayan means running away. Apalayanam therefore becomes not fleeing. Danam is charity. Ishwar bhav is behaving like a lord, so or lordliness. Cha and kshatram is of the kshatriyas. Karm subhavajam. Karm is characteristics or duties. Born, subhav is nature, jam is born. So karm, subhav, jam, uh, duties born of their own nature or characteristics born of their nature, right? It's so here we are taking characteristics and duties. We are using them synonymously in these set of verses where we are talking of the caste system. So the verse translates to prowess, splendor, steadfastness, dexterity, and not fleeing from the battle. Charity and lordliness are characteristics of Kshatriya, born of their nature. So let's chant it together. शौर्यं तेजोधृतिर्दाक्षयम् युद्धे चाप्यपलायनम् दानमीश्वरभावश्च छात्रं कर्म स्वभावजम्. So, in verse number 42, we talked about the Brahmins who had more, mostly their content or their nature was sattvic. This verse, we are talking of the Kshatriyas, and when we have been discussing the gunas, we have seen that the Kshatriyas have higher rajas content as compared to the sattva in their personality. And of course, as we have been reading in the Bhagavad Gita, that the four castes are described as manifestation of the
You're
various
right.
gunas in our personality. Uh, okay, in our personality, and how you know, act or behave in the field of expression, that is in the world, when we contact objects of the world. And objects, of course, also refer to human beings and the entire creation. Now, the point to be noted is that the Kshatriya is not being defined as the son of another Kshatriya. Instead, the person must, exhibit the set of qualities and which are also the duties of the Kshatriya. So, the following behavior characteristics should be there in a Kshatriya. So the first one is shauryam or valor, prowess. So this is the vigor with which the person meets one's challenges in life. And a kshatriya by nature exhibits heroism and vigor of pursuit. Therefore, kshatriya must have valor, bravery, and gallantry. Next is Tej. This is brilliance, radiance, luster. So, this is a characteristic of a person in action. So, even if we see around us people who are acting, who are active, they have a certain amount of radiance in their, luster. They shine. So this quality again must be there in a kshatriya naturally, because it's born of uh, activity and valor. Dhriti, steadfastness, and we have spent a lot of time discussing this in with relation to buddhi and dhriti and how it channelizes our action and thoughts towards a particular goal. So, dhriti is the steadfastness, consistency of purpose. It is a quality of the intellect. It is the steadfastness which keeps the constituent elements of our body towards focus towards a particular goal. So all the three things, the body, mind, and intellect, are channelized, and it's the firmness. The dhriti is the firmness with which they are all channelized towards a particular goal in the field of activity that we have chosen. So, steadfastness and consistency of purpose is dhriti, and this helps us pursue on a path till the goal is attained. This, in spite of the fatigue, which may at times also come in our way, in spite of the fatigue or the challenges that come in our path on the chosen goal, for the chosen goal, that is dhriti. So, and as mentioned, it is a quality of having a resolute intellect. So, you just carry on. Daksha, skillful, dexterous. So, in Sanskrit, the word daksh means alert or attention. It's a word that you use in the army. So, it means an alert or a vigilant person. And so, the person is skillful, smart, prompt, alert, and an expert. These are the fallouts of this quality. The most important attribute here is that the person is deft and prompt in decision making and subsequent action. So, the advantage of the current situation can be taken. And this is important because very often, if you don't act promptly, the situation changes, and especially on a battlefield, and you have lost the advantage that you had. And of course, we are talking of a battlefield, but this is also a quality. This is also a quality which you should also be exhibiting when you are doing various functions in the in your daily life. So I mean, for example, even investment in the stock market, if you miss that opportunity, it's gone. So if you take too long to decide, it's just the situation is gone. Or any action for that matter, if you are always in the analysis, we have that analysis paralysis mode. uh, One should analyze quickly and take a decision and work on that. So Kshatriya possesses alertness of mind, is smart, skillful, and industrious. Next quality is Yuddhe Apalayanam. So, not fleeing from the battle. Uh, okay, now when we are talking of the battle, Yuddhe is battle. Now, battle, we can literally take it to be a battlefield, which is the current setting. And actually, Arjuna was running away from the battle. I mean, okay, not physically, maybe he just put a bow and arrow down. But when he's saying that I cannot fight, he's actually saying that I give up, it's over. And you remember when we had started chapter 2, and basically in chapter 2, first of all, Lord Krishna is telling him that you should fight. That is the dharma of a kshatriya. You may go back to those verses. So that is the first thing that the Lord is telling him, that if you don't fight, you're going against your nature. That is not your nature. So that is one. So a true warrior does not step back in any field of battle. Now, this literal comparison to a battlefield is only a partial covering of this attribute. So, the battlefield, Yudh, in the current context includes all fields of competition or situations where people, situations, circumstances are not are arranged in our opposition. So we have a goal, but there are challenges. There's people against us. So all these are battles. So you have wars at the political, economic, diplomatic, to name a few levels. So in all these situations, a true Kshatriya does not feel despondent or nervous and does not abandon the field that the person has entered till the time the goal that the person has set is reached. So, this is an important quality again. Now, Danam. So, Dan we know is charity, so giving, sharing with others. So basically, a Kshatriya is liberal in generosity towards others. Now, this is the Kshatriya classes were the rulers also. So this is the quality that arises from being of the regal background or nobility. And governments and kings cannot be popular unless they loosen their purse strings. And every government, so uh, we see around us how the government budget in all, even the democratic countries, has amounts which are allocated, which are not discussed and which are not debatable. They are there for people, for the government to share with the people, poor people maybe, or to promote the government or the ruler. So a person in command or a ruler cannot afford to be miserly. Then the last quality is that we are talking about is Ishwar Bhav or lordliness. So this is kingliness or princely, the state of being in a commanding position. It's just the opposite of being a subservient person. So, Kshatriyas are the ruling classes, warriors, political leaders, and without self confidence in one's own abilities, one cannot lead others. So, the leader must have faith, firm faith in one's own self, and then motivate others by example. So, lordliness is one of the essential traits in a Kshatriya. And now we must pause at this point of time and also understand that in a society, rulers and spiritual leaders cannot be there simultaneously. So either you're a ruler or you're a spiritual head. So, having said that, however, a true ruler or a leader is one who has the ability to incorporate the spiritual ideals which the spiritual leaders are providing or heads are providing, and dharma or righteousness into the work culture and promote that in their reign in the various fields of activity. And just when we read the verse number 42, eight qualities or eight duties were given to the Brahmin. Eight duties are given to the Kshatriya, which are, of course, as we have discovered, Shaurya, Tej, Dhriti, Daksha, not fleeing from the battle, charity, and lordliness. And the last word is very important, Swabhav Jan. Jam, these are not forced, they arise from one's inherent nature. Let's move on to verse number 44. I will chant. कृषिगौरक्ष्यवाणिज्यं वैश्यकर्म स्वभावजम् परिचर्यात्मकं कर्म शूद्रस्यापि स्वभावजम्. So the verse translates to agriculture, cattle rearing, trade are duties of Vaishya, born of their nature, And service is the duty of the Shudra, born of their nature. So let's take this up word by word. Simple verse: Krishi, agriculture; Goraksha is cattle rearing; Vanijya, trade and finance. So trade is what we are taking here. Vaishyakarm, duties of the Vaishyas. Subhavjan, Jam is born of their own nature. Paricharyakam is service orientation. Karm Shudra se, characteristics or duties of the Shudra. Api also, Subhavjan is also born of their own nature. Right? So, agriculture, cattle rearing, trade are duties of the Vaishyas, born of their nature, and service is the duty of the Shudras, also born of their nature. So, let's chant it together. कृषि गोरक्ष वाणिज्यं वैश्यकर्म स्वभावजं परिचर्यात्मकं कर्म शूद्रस्यापि स्वभावजम्. So, by when we reach the Vaishya caste, what has happened is that the rajas has increased now substantially. Little sattva is there, but traces of tamas have started emerging in the personality. So, the Vaishyas are those class of people who generate economic wealth through business and agriculture. So, farmers, agriculturalists, business persons, they are examples of the Vaishya caste. They are very, very hardworking. In fact, if you just observe around you, I mean, for example, a farmer or a shopkeeper, you will find that they might at times be having longer hours than a Brahmin or a Kshatriya. So they are actually very hardworking, and at times even more than a Brahmin or a Kshatriya. So, and what they do is that they sustain the economy of the nation and create jobs for other classes. But in and through all this, the basic characteristic is that they have an eye for profit. So they um, are talking or approach everything with that kind of mentality, looking for profits. So they also undertake charitable projects to share their wealth, and especially with the lower sections of the deprived sections of the society. However, the larger part of the profit is kept for themselves, for their desires. So, bigger and bigger houses, bigger cars, fancy vacations, great parties. So, whenever you enter a house, you can see the mode in which the house appears to you, or the home is presented to to you. I mean, where there are places where you just flaunt, you know. So this is again their nature. This is Subhavijam, born of their nature, that they want to have profits for their own selves and flaunt it. Then we come to the Shudras. Now here tamas has become the predominant quality. So such people are not inclined towards knowledge, administration. They cannot be leaders. They don't even have inclination for making money or commercial enterprises. They are more comfortable being told what to do. So they cannot decide, and they are happy doing what others are telling them to do. So they are more comfortable taking orders as opposed to giving them. And therefore, the best way for them to contribute towards society is in providing service. So, we have artisans, technicians, job workers, tailors, craftsmen, servers, barbers, etc. All these people fall in this class. This is a broad classification. Of course, you can have very smart, let's say, tailor, so then it becomes a vaishya if you open a boutique and you're looking at ways to make money. So there is a borderline, but mostly this is what is the shudra kind of a personality. Now the important part is the word subhavaja. So This word has been repeated 4 times in the last 3 verses, which emphasizes that the caste system, as explained in our scriptures or in Bhagavad Gita, is based on individual's nature and not on birth. It is the mental temperament of a person which determines the caste or the class that the person belongs to. And each class has a different set of duties or demarcated duties to perform towards in the world and benefit the society with, and also be a mode of living for that person. And persons belonging to higher groups or higher caste should not look down with contempt on the people of lower caste, because it is all the 4 castes which support and function together in the society, leading to a well oiled, cohesive society. Otherwise, if this were not to be the case, there will be there will be chaos in the society, because what will happen, that a person who is fit temperamentally for one type of work, if he is entrusted with a different type of activity, the chaos will not only be in the person himself or herself is working out of against one's nature, but also in the field in which the person is working. And we will try and take this up by the 3 examples, and we can discuss further during the question answer sessions. First example, a kshatriya is called upon to, let's say, fan someone. Cool, use the fan and fan someone in the spirit of service and sacrifice. The kshatriya may also agree to do the same. But after some time, what will happen? The kshatriya will be looking for someone to fan him or her. So confusion in that service context. Say, example two, a person who is predominantly of, uh, commercial temperament, a Vaishya, is sent to, goes for meditation to the Himalayas. And there the person sees that how much of, people who are coming for meditation, they need woolen shawls, etc. And I mean, so what will happen? Very soon you'll find that Himalayan shawl wool store open there. To That's the natural inclination of the person. Again, if a Vaishya, example three, if a Vaishya were to become the head of any government, and I think this is very, very relevant in today's world, the person, a business person, if he or she becomes the head of any government, the person, out of sheer instinct, will start doing profitable businesses from that seat of authority. Okay, so it is very important that we must analyze and discover the type of vasanas and temperaments that predominate us and determine our personality. And then we should choose our vocation accordingly. So, with that, let's move on to verse number 45. स्वे स्वे कर्मण्यभिरथ संसिद्धिं लभते नरः स्वकर्मनिरतसिद्धिं यथा विन्दति तच्छृणु. Devoted each one to their own duty, one attains perfection. How engaged in one's duty or action, one attains perfection or fulfillment, that do listen. So let's take this up word by word. Sway sway means in one's own, Karmani, in action or in duties. Abhirat is when you're devoted or Ramawa. Sansiddhim, complete fulfillment or complete perfection. Labhate, attains. Nara, human. Swakarm, nirata, that means engaged in action, in one's action. Siddham, fulfillment, yatha, how, vindati, finds, tat, that, shinu, listen. So, devoted each one to their duty, one attains perfection. How engaged in one's duty, one attains fulfillment, that do listen. So, let's chant it together. स्वे स्वे कर्मण्यभिरथ संसिद्धिं लभते नराः स्वकर्मनिरतसिद्धिं यथा विन्दति तच्छृणु. So after talking about uh, analysis of action, karta, doer, buddhi, so on and so forth. Then we talked according to the gunas, according on the basis of the gunas, we talked about the caste system in detail. So after detailing the caste system, Lord Krishna now explains how we, an individual, how a person can find fulfillment in and through one's actions. So, whatever caste you are, whatever nature is your nature, how will you attain fulfillment? This is a psychological truth. And throughout, Lord Krishna has laid the emphasis on basing the life's activity on our inherent nature, our vasanas, our tendencies, our gunas. So, the first point that we must uh, pay heed to is that to follow or to attain that fulfillment or perfection, fulfillment, perfection are being used synonymously now. One must follow those activities or perform those activities that are compatible with one's nature, or we must follow our own nature. So, what are we saying? That following our own nature purifies us. And also, more importantly, when we are following our own nature, then the entire personality is supporting our action, because that is the way we are inclined. And this is how we get purification. What happens is that our body, mind, and intellect cooperate and function in unison now, because my tendencies are in line with what activity I've chosen. The technique of how to act was already covered, chapter 3, 4, and 5. So we must work without ego and without egocentric desires. So we must work in the spirit of service and sacrifice. These are the broad takeaways from those chapters. For detailed understanding, we should go and revise those chapters. So what the Lord now is saying, that this is for our own fulfillment. So the second point is, by following our own nature, we find fulfillment. How? Because when we are working with our vasanas, or according to our vasanas, we are doing firstly the prescribed duties which our vasanas are dictating. So the vasanas will get reduced. So I will get over that desire. There will be lesser burden on my body, mind, and intellect. And by working in the devotedly in our best suited field, without uh, you know uh, without ego and that entire technique of right action, we will be exhausting our existing vasanas. Once the vasanas reduce, our mental faculty, actually our body, mind, and intellect, everything, our faculties become available, are freed up. So the faculties are now available for more and more concentration and single pointed contemplation on Paramatman. This will, of course, that will be then our goal till the time we reach that Paramatman. When we become that bliss, we are completely fulfilled, there's nothing more required. While acting, however, at times we may feel that the circumstances are not permitting us to work according to our basic nature. But we should continue, we should persevere. And over a period of time, we'll find that the things and the situations start falling in place. And at times, whenever we feel dejected, we should draw inspiration from the biographies of some of the great personalities. And here I'll take examples of some of them: Kabir, Beethoven, Albert Einstein, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So, reading great people's biographies or autobiographies is always a great idea to motivate oneself. And it's also not, it's a relaxing reading also. So, it's not like you are studying. And we as Indians are very, very fortunate in having this intelligent classification of humanity based on their physical behavior, psychological structure, and intellectual capabilities available to us in our great scriptures. A classification which is applicable not only to Indians but to the entire world, the entire humanity. With that, let's move on to the last verse for the day, verse number 46. यतः प्रवृत्तिर्भूतानां येन सर्वमिदं ततं स्वकर्मणा तमभ्यर्चय सिद्धिं विन्दति मानवः. So the verse translates to from whom. Uh, so, in the Indian scriptures, as you're aware, we refer to God as that. We don't really use a word that means. So when you say Om Tat Sat, so that is that reality. So here, what we are saying is from whom all beings emerge, by whom all this is pervaded, by worshipping Him with one's action. Him, if you have a problem with the masculine gender, we can call it it. So by worshipping it with one's action, human attains perfection. So let's take this up word by word. Yat, from whom? Pravriti is the nature or the emergence of the beings. Bhutanam is of beings. So pravriti bhutanam becomes emergence of the beings. Yen, by whom? Sarvam, all. Idam, this, tatam is pervaded. Sarva karmana, swaha karmana, that means our actions, with one's actions. Tam, him. Abhyacharya, having worshipped. Siddhim, perfection, fulfillment. Vindati, attains. Manav, humans. So the verse translates to from whom all being emerge, by whom all this is pervaded, by worshipping him with one's action, human attains perfection. So let's chant it together. यतः प्रवृत्तिर्भूतानां येन सर्वमिदं ततं स्वकर्मणा तमभ्यर्च्य सिद्धिं विन्दति मानवः. So, the fourfold classification of humanity on the basis of their vasanas uh, was discussed. We were implored to choose our vocation in line with our vasanas, act in the spirit of service and sacrifice, chapters 3, 4, and 5. And the last verse told us that this is how we will attain perfection and fulfillment. So, if you recall, chapters 7 and 8 really focused on that what we seek is what we get. And you can go through those chapters. And throughout the Bhagwad Gita, now that we are reaching the end and you've been through the journey, Lord Krishna has been repeatedly saying that God, the Paramatman, maintains, or He Himself maintains our faith. And God will support us in what we do. And howsoever we worship Him, God will support us. So we must constantly remember the higher goal towards which we are directing our actions. So when I go on the wrong path and I'm aware that I should not be telling a lie, but I'm telling a lie, I should immediately think of my action, and this action is done in for that Paramatman, and I should evaluate. So that is one. So choosing the right field and acting in the spirit of service and sacrifice, working efficiently, the exhaustion of our vasanas takes place, and we will attain our goal. What is the goal? From, as the verse is saying, from whom all beings arise, and from by whom all this is pervaded. And this, I'm sure, will remind many of you who have done the Upanishad with us of the first line of the first verse of the Ish Upanishad, which reads, Ishavasya sarvam yat kinch jagatyam jagat, which means that Ish ka vash hai, or that Lord, that reality pervades everything, sarvam, everything. Yat kinch jagatyam jagat, that we see around us in the world, moving or non moving. It is, like saying it's the ocean in the waves, in all the waves, it's the fuel in all the vehicles, it's the electricity in all the electrical appliances. The same examples that we've been taking again and again to explain the concept of that supreme reality. And it is that great reality by whose grace all the activities are going on. Our body, mind, and intellect, which are in the realm of matter, actually, as we just discussed, it is inert. So, by itself, they don't have any consciousness. So, you can have an organ or a sense organ, but yet not sense it. So, you can have ears, but you may not be able to hear. If the entire system is not connected and enabled by that Paramatman. So it is only when we are enabled by the Paramatman that we have this wonderful life or experience. And to this effect, I will take up, just revise the three verses so that this concept of Ish, God, reality pervading everything. From the chapter 7, which was the Jnana Vigyan Yoga, basically verses 4, 5, and 6, they talked about the higher and the lower nature of Brahman and how the two meet to create this world. So, verse number 4 talked about the lower nature of Brahman, which was the gross and the subtle matter. The gross matter was, of course, the Panch Mahabhut, Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, and Prithvi, or the five great elements. Subtle matter was our intelligence, buddhi, manaha, mind, and ego, ahankar. But these by themselves have no life. So, verse number 5 of the same chapter talked of the higher nature of Brahman, the Jeev Bhut, or the life principle that enlivens the lower nature. And then verse number 6 goes on to say that the combination, that know these two energies to be the source of all the living beings. And he goes on to say that I am the origin and the dissolution of the whole world, the whole universe, actually. And of course, in chapter 13, that was the Kshetragya Vibhag Yoga, we had talked about Gyan, what is knowledge, Gayam, what is to be known, and Gyan Gamyam, which was a goal of knowledge, where all seeking, all knowledge ends. And then we are, there's only one knower of that field, and we are with that Paramatman. So we must worship this reality by our own actions, karma, and not actually only karma, but swakarma. Action in accordance with our vasanas. So we must do the prescribed duties. We must constantly remember Paramatman in and through all our activities 24 by 7. Just as a musician takes a range of notes, meed, gamak, and but is constantly aware and conscious and is registering the tanpura. So if the tanpura is playing the notes sa pa, each time the musician is passing those notes, the musician ensures that those notes are in line, completely aligned. And therefore, similarly, we must also perform all our actions aligned to God. And this is how work becomes worship. Action is worship. Our duty is worship. We don't really need flowers, incense, prayers, prayer books, sweets. All this is not required. If we do our duty properly, we are worshiping the Lord every moment of our lives. And I thought I will just take up a quote here from Martin Luther King, and I will read it out verbatim. If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. So, this is how through our actions we attain that Paramatman. Closing the recording.